All right, good evening. Oops. This is the Mahtomedi School Board emergency meeting on Monday, November 16th at 7:02 p.m. Due to the current emergency declarations and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the Mahtomedi School Board is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D-021, meetings by telephone or other electronic means. School board members are reminded to mute their microphones when they're not speaking. All votes tonight will be conducted by roll call vote. Each school board member should wait until their name is called before voting. This meeting is also being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as reasonably possible. Tonight's meeting is also what we call an emergency meeting, which is allowed by statute. We did not post this meeting more than 3 days in advance because we didn't know we'd be having it. Some additional information has come forward that we need to address right away. And so that's why this meeting has such a short timeline notice to it. So the first thing I like to do is call the meeting to order and do roll call of attendance. Julie?
Kevin Donovan.
Here.
Julie McGraw, aye. Judy Schwartz. I see you, Judy. Stacy Stout.
Aye.
And Lucy Payne.
Here.
Thanks, Judy.
All right, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Kevin, I think seconded by Julie, is that right?
Yep.
Any discussion? Right. Tonight's agenda cannot be changed because it's an emergency meeting. We can only address the topics that are presented. So roll call vote. We have a motion and a second.
Kevin Donovan.
Aye.
Julie McGraw, aye. Judy Schwartz. Stacy Stout.
Aye.
And Lucy Payne.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. So before we start tonight, I would like to make an opening comment. Again, as with many recent meetings, the board would like to thank Barb Deffrin, building administrators, teachers, and staff for all the work they're doing right now under very difficult conditions. One of our priorities is keeping our staff and our community safe with our operational actions. I want to thank all the students and community members who are reaching out and supporting our learning team. Teaching is hard work under normal conditions. Teaching during a pandemic is not what anyone expected. This is a time to work together and offer grace as we all navigate our current reality. We are holding this meeting tonight to hear from our superintendent, Barb Deffrin, on our learning model. Another priority we set as a board was to make operational decisions based upon objective information provided by scientific, public health, and medical experts. Ms. Deffrin has new data information that she will share with us tonight. So our first agenda item is the learning models and approving a learning model change potentially. So Barb, this is your item. And you are on mute.
Thank you to all of you for making the time this evening. I do appreciate your support in continuing to move forward and have these conversations. And I know it's been a lot of meetings recently, so I'm thankful that you're able to make this time. So I will be going through this learning model update. Some of the information is information that I shared with you on Thursday. And then some of it is new based on new data, new school level data, and also conversations that we had with the regional support team and the incident command team today. So, okay, there we go. So I will go over briefly the learning model change process. That's a review for you. Talk to you about the COVID-19 or current data. Some of that has been updated. Also share with you the learning model change recommendation and next steps. So you've seen this chart many times now, and we are once again in a position where I'm bringing you a recommendation. That's the third part here. I did meet today with the incident command team and the regional support team, and also our leadership team in having conversations about our learning model. This is data that I shared with you on Thursday's meeting. As a reminder, this is our Washington County data, our COVID-19 data over time. The The numbers down below, highlighted in yellow, those are numbers with our correctional facility population backed out so that you can have an idea of the actual community spread. As a reminder, also, these are 2 weeks lagging. So if you notice that this is data that came from the 18th through the 31st of October. So the first time I came to you to talk to you about learning model changes, if you recall, is right here. It was the 22nd, I think, and then we talked again on the 26th. And these were the numbers. If, you know, at the time we didn't have these numbers to look at from MDH, but our county public health, and again, I'll thank Washington County, our local public health, who have been really working with us on this, could see that we had concerning numbers and was communicating with us that they were seeing this increase in community spread. But it's coming to us now. So remember, these are lagging numbers. This is, here are these numbers again, just in a chart form so that you can see the growth over time. And as a reminder, again, I shared this with you on Thursday. This number, according to the learning model that we started the school year with, would put us in distance learning for all students. Of course, we talked about this again on Thursday as well, is that the state has since given us a little bit more guidance on how we can use these numbers effectively. And although we had always looked at a number of factors in our decision making, they further refined that by helping us look at each building individually as we move this forward and so which is why we ended up with high school in distance learning and not both secondary schools at the same time. Sorry, I have to move our faces around here. I've got you right there. So, and also as a reminder, the elementary and secondary schools do use different numbers. And I did clarify this a little bit too, because of the difference in the school schedule, mobility, and independence of students. So specifically, you know, high school students, they are more mobile in their school activities and their daily lives, whether they're driving, working, engaging in athletics and activities. Whereas our elementary students are less so. And so that has something to do with the different recommendations that they have in that chart. This is our most recent dashboard, and it does indicate a sharp increase in the number. I'll show you in a minute here, the numbers of students quarantined. I mentioned to you also last week that we were expecting Mahtomedi Middle School to be on the list this week. We will appear on the list this week on MDH for student and staff positive COVID-19 cases over the last 2 weeks. And as a reminder, the reason they use that indicator is that is one of their indicators that suggests that there is likely transmission within a building. And so that's why they use that. And so both our high school and our middle school will be on that list. High school went onto that list a couple of weeks ago, and the middle school will be this week. So here's a picture of our quarantine trends. You'll notice our first big jump was right after MEA weekend, and you'll see, so you see that jump from the 27 to 88, and that was right after MEA weekend. And so this is our current, we're at 144 students in quarantine due to close contacts or positive tests. This is, I want to stop here and just mention to you this, one of the questions we did ask our regional support team was in discussing this, this jump after MEA, we talked about the possibility that we would see this jump again after Thanksgiving. And that was something that they did suggest that they would anticipate to have happen. They also mentioned that they do not see things slowing down right now in terms of community transmission. And one other thing I'll just mention to you also is that our new cases as of today, we are not seeing cases from the correctional facilities or long-term care. So our local public health our epidemiologist was looking at the cases that were coming in most recently. And so the cases that we have right now, again, not the ones I showed you, which were 2 weeks lagging, the ones that we're seeing right now are truly community spread and not due to the outbreak. So as you, for those of you who are watching the numbers from home, you could also anticipate that those are true indicators of community spread. I shared this with you on Thursday as well, and so I'll just briefly highlight staffing challenges during COVID-19. We feel like we're doing pretty well, actually. I will say that. We did a number of things to lessen the challenges that we would have with staffing, including hiring daily substitute teachers for each building, having some backup for additional staff for our custodial staff, and some ways to fill positions when people are out. So we do feel like we've done a number of things to prepare ourselves to stay in as long as we can and to cover our staffing issues. So I do want to thank all of those people, including especially Nicole Flessner, our HR director, who worked hard to make sure we could have all of that lined up ahead of time to mitigate some of the staffing challenges other districts are having right now. I will say, however, that in our childcare programs, we do have more challenges there, in particular because we don't have as large of a subpool. And we didn't, even prior to COVID-19, that's always been a challenge. So that is one place that we're experiencing an increase in close contact, and we are watching that as well. So I did mention this already, but here's the date. October 30th, the high school was added to the MDH website, and on November 19th, Mahtomedi Middle School will be added. So, and I've discussed that already. So some other important considerations regarding our COVID-19 data. In terms of what are we seeing, where is this, the source of cases in our quarantine? So at the elementary, our largest share of COVID-19 cases in elementary are from household spread. So parents or siblings test positive. Our quarantines, while our positive cases are low, we do end up having larger groups quarantine often in the elementary, in particular at Wildwood, where students have a more difficult time maintaining that space, that 6 feet. And it's just the age and the movement, and they're in childcare, they're on the bus. And so there's just more of that. Whereas at the older grades, we have less quarantine that needs to happen within the building because of the students not moving as much and being able to stay in at their spot and in their desk. But the majority of spread is coming from the household, and determining the source has been difficult and is taking more of our time because the secondary students, their increased mobility. So that's just some additional information that questions that we've had. And so we wanted to address them here. I do want to also emphasize, and we're really thankful we've seen this week, our high school, so we're in distance learning in our high school, and I will say we are seeing parents from our high school do a great job of really sharing information regarding test and symptom information so that we can continue to contact, trace, and isolate and prevent greater spread. So we've been thankful for those parents who have been continuing to contact our school nurse and keep us in the loop with what's going on at home and in the community so that we can continue to track and understand what's happening. Over the past few weeks, we have seen accelerated growth in the amount of time our nursing staff spends contact tracing, and we're okay right now. I just want you to know that they've been spending more and more time and they've been very busy doing the significant amount of time spending contact tracing and coordinating when there's sibling exposure among the buildings. So that's increased recently. So regional support teams. So this leads us up to our meeting today with the regional support team. Their recommendation based on what's happening in the community and also within our buildings was to plan to transition all of our buildings to distance learning. So first, the middle school. Our recommendation is that the middle school make a learning model change starting on November 30th. using, so this week they will continue to attend in-person school based on their blue and gold cohort schedule. November 23rd and 24th will be used as teacher planning days. And so that would be no school for middle school students. And then, so for that whole week then, that November 23rd through 27th, the students would not have school due to the staff planning days and then those regularly scheduled no school days. And then on the 30th, students would start with distance learning 2.0. And I'm going to give you a little bit more detail to that because the principals did want you to understand the plan there and what their focus will be. So I'll share that with you. And then the principals are, I believe, in the audience and able to pop in if you have additional questions. At the elementary schools, we intend to keep our elementary students in a little bit longer. So elementary students would continue in-person school this week and next week on the 23rd and 24th. On November 30th and December 1st, after Thanksgiving, we would have students, we would have planning days for teachers, and then to prepare for distance learning. And so those would be no school days for elementary students. And then on December 2nd, elementary would start with distance learning. As a reminder, I also shared this with you, or Tony did, I think, first, when we first started talking about distance learning for the high school, was this idea of in-person learning groups during distance learning. And we've started those at the high school. And in this model for elementary and middle school, we would start these, start groups up on December 7th. That would give teachers the week to plan for the logistics and identify students who would be coming in. So that would be starting on December 2nd, or 7th, excuse me. So I know distance learning for all our students was different in the spring than it will be this time. And so one of the things our principals wanted to be able to communicate is what are those improvements that will be made for distance learning 2.0, and it's informed by feedback from staff, students, and families. So at Wildwood Elementary School, we want you to know that the focus will be on relationships, connection, and engagement, which will involve synchronous lessons, breakout rooms, and live morning meetings. Building school community and class community will still be an important part. Social interaction opportunities. So for example, lunch groups is one of those things that our distance learning students have been doing. And we heard about that recently, that just, I think when the principals were here on Thursday, there are already some lunch groups that have started through distance learning. And so they're going to build upon that. And then again, our in-person groups that we'll be able to offer. At OH Elementary School, OH Anderson, we'll be talking about relationships, connection, and engagement, which will be synchronous lessons, which is different from last spring, morning announcements, live morning meetings, and also small group lessons. There'll be a schedule for student support and small group work, social interaction opportunities, and also in-person groups. Mahtomedi Middle School, really focused again on relationships and social emotional growth, more interaction, connections, wellness, support time, a new daily schedule that will have more engagement, breaks, and support, and a focus on different timing and expectation. And they will also offer in-person groups. So goals for the teacher planning days, things that our teachers are going to be working on. Wildwood is that student-teacher relationships, technology school, and really developing clear parent-student-teacher expectations for a schedule that includes both academic work and social connections. At OH, they'll really be working on outlining the logistics of distance learning. There's current distance learning teachers that are going to share what they've been doing so far, videos of their lessons. There'll be more technology exploration time and collaborative peer learning opportunities. Mahtomedi Middle School would be focusing on that, scheduling their student support, timing of the lessons, lesson development to improve student engagement, and time for teaching partners to work together. I know one of the questions and that we often hear is, when will we return? If we start in hybrid, to distance learning, when will we be able to return to hybrid? I talked to you about this on Thursday also, that this has been something we've been pushing for as some guidance in this area. And we talked about it again at the regional support team meeting today. They did say that they're not able to tell us something concretely. But it is the case that they are looking for a change. Right now, the community numbers are increasing rapidly, and they are looking for a change in what's happening in the community. We also talked quite a bit about ways that we can get feedback from community leading up to our return to hybrid. And so we're going to continue to work on that and fine tune that communication. One of the things we heard from the incident command team was, when will you hear more from us? So one of the parents asked that question. And so it is the case that at every school board meeting, I've been providing you with some information. And so on our learning model. And so on December 10th, our next school board meeting, our regular meeting, I'll provide another update and I'll share the latest data. And I will give you as much information as I have at that point about what we can do to talk about specifics around returning to hybrid. I will say MDH has been hearing it enough that they know we need that. And so that's something that we're going to be working on, and they were not prepared to give that to us at this point, but I know it's something that's being talked about. So after that meeting on December 10th, we would also continue to communicate any information after that. So on the 11th, an email out to everybody who hasn't seen the board meeting on the 10th. And then we'll just continue to communicate any new information we have as we go. Early childhood and elementary childcare. So for early childhood, we can continue our early childhood programming, in part because it is so part-time. We have very small classes. And so at this time, we are able to continue our early childhood. Our classes are well below the 50% capacity. So families who are participating in early childhood will receive information regarding next steps there. I shared this with you on Thursday, and we sent this information out on Friday, and families who currently receive Tier 1 essential care received another email this weekend, just trying to prepare everyone for the fact that our free care will be provided to children, provided that all of the parents or legal guardians in the child's household are workers in Tier 1 industries. And we're simply doing this because we don't have the capacity to use, to staff if all of the, if everyone is there, we don't have at once, we don't have the capacity to staff. Currently, we have everyone split up over the course of 5 days, and everyone all at once, we would not have that capacity. However, we are able to offer some additional childcare based on a fee as well. So our families will be receiving information about how to sign up, and we'll be figuring out exactly how to cohort groups in childcare during this time. And I think that's all the information I have in terms of slides to share with you. But then I can go back and we can address any questions that you have about what I just shared.
So this is a time for board members to ask questions. The question we have on the table, the action we need to take, is to decide about the learning model. Barb has provided us a lot of information on what distance learning 2.0 would look like, but that is not what we're voting on or discussing of what that looks like so much as to the learning model change. I don't want us to get bogged down tonight in discussing distance learning 2.0 when that is the purview of the building administrators and the teachers to decide what that looks like. So we can really focus our questions on the learning model, the scientific data, and the advice from the medical experts would be very helpful. So I'm looking to board members to see if anyone has any questions. Go ahead, Stacy.
So I guess I understand that the regional support person has been much more engaged, and I think the guidance has been more informative. Can you go into what they said about our elementary numbers, and because it doesn't look like we'll be on that list for either of our elementary buildings.
Yeah.
What is that looking like? And did that person suggest the December 2nd start, or did they leave that open-ended? How did we get to that date?
Kind of a combination. So part of it has to do with the timing. So coming back, so one of the things we talked about is coming back after Thanksgiving and the activity that, what we would expect to have happen as a result of everyone being home and celebrating Thanksgiving. And we've been hearing that a lot recently. And we saw it at MEA weekend too. We saw that across our buildings. After MEA, we saw an increase across the buildings. And so the combination of what's happening in the community and the timing of Thanksgiving is what led them to recommend that this is a good time to move into distance learning. I think if it weren't for the fact that we had Thanksgiving right here, if Thanksgiving had been later, I think we would have gone a little bit longer, and that's where it comes from. And so, I mean, so that's, you know, to that point, that's part of the conversation we had about how can we communicate with families on how to prepare to come back, and what do we need to see in order to come back. And so that was all part of that conversation. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Just like Stacey, I want to make sure everyone has a turn. Okay, go ahead, Stacey.
So kind of to follow up on that. So we know at a minimum, they'll want us to look at a 3-week trend for any type of return. So looking at the calendar, then it looks like then we're running into Christmas break or holiday break, and then we're into January. So is it just so that parents we can manage expectations? While I think it will be very important that obviously you will give us another update on December 10th. Can you maybe elaborate on that and say what the realistic expectations would be for families?
Well, I'll tell you 2 versions. So one of the versions really was to talk about how do we bring people back after winter break. That was definitely one of the questions, and looking at New Year's Eve and looking at the fact that likely elementary students aren't doing as much celebrating on New Year's Eve compared to high school students, and how that plays into things. But another conversation we did have was, is there any possibility that we could like bring our elementary back briefly before winter break? So that was part of our conversation, and we did discuss that. And then we discussed, well, what would that need to look like and how could we communicate? So I actually think on December 10th, I'll be talking to you about that a little bit. I'm hopeful that we'll get a little more guidance, because that certainly was part of our conversation. Like, could we have our elementary potentially come in briefly, reconnect, and then, you know, before winter break? But I guess we just don't know. But that was certainly part of our conversation. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Stacey.
So just on, obviously we've talked about this numerous times. We know that mental health and loss of learning are a top of mind. I think you've really laid out what you're trying to do at the high school to address that. I'm guessing that'll be similar for the middle school. And then will the plan come into place for elementary regarding those things? And will we at some point on this loss of learning piece, obviously it's tough to measure these things, and there has been some testing and those sorts of things, and we know what grades look like. Will we as a board see that at some point? And what's the plan to kind of gauge that, so then we can make sure we're staying on top of it?
Well, I see Susie Prather's coming in, so she's going to, and there's Scott Brisky. So they will talk to you a little bit about it looks like they're here to talk to you about the elementary. And then I see Susie. Go ahead, you start, and then I'll follow up. Oh, and here comes Mike Newbeck.
We all just popped in, so.
All right, well, welcome.
you were asking about our systems of supports for our students similar to the high school. We are using a similar framework on how do we support kids similar to what the high school is. And we have kind of a RTI piece that we're looking at academic support, we're looking at social emotional support, and we're looking at what are the supports kind of organizational wise and kind of that academic support piece. So we have a plan and we're looking at that similar plan, just like Tony had explained about some kids getting that support maybe in a virtual manner and some of them in a face-to-face manner. So we have a very similar support structure using a lot of the language at the elementary level for our kiddos with that, both the learning loss as well as that social emotional piece.
Mike, did you want to say, or Scott, did you want to say anything?
The only thing I would say is that we're going to be very much like the high school, where we'll have specific time targeted support for kids, not only for academics, but also the social emotional part. I also know that our counselors are really working on doing some Tuesday, Thursday extra work with some kids who need that extra support. And they're doing their, I talked about the Wellness Wednesdays that they're doing. They'll still do that at the distance level model as well. And so, you know, I think we have a lot of things that are put into place. It's just a matter of some of the planning days next week that the teachers will do is how to specifically target some of those students and how to do that extra half an hour that they're not used to, and because they've been teaching for 90 minutes. So then they'll have that 30 minutes of support for kids.
Yeah, just everything that Susie said. And then also, even last year in the spring, our students were able to come in and get support at school one-on-one, which was amazing. And then our teachers are more comfortable with technology. So with breakout rooms and small group work, and then being able to work one-on-one with students, they should be able to get all that support that they need.
And then what I'm hearing from you is that you're looking for another board report to talk about overall our programming and assessment, I think is what you're also asking for. And so we'll make sure we do that in the spring.
Yes, if I could add on to that. It sounds like in other districts that have been, I think in St. Paul, they've been distance learning all year. And I think 40% of their students have at least one failing grade. So I think everything you've laid out and everything we're doing, I think we are really trying to mitigate that and just and avoid that from the get-go. So I don't want to assume the worst. I think it's important that we are staying on top of it and showing that we are acknowledging the challenge and how we're addressing it. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, go ahead.
I was much taken by the survey that we saw the data for the other night. And I think I had asked a question about when we might anticipate be doing another one of those. And I'm trying to be I realize that the system is stressed right now with everything that you are all trying to do. So I want to be sensitive to that. But on the flip side of it is this idea of when might we see some more data coming in that could, again, just be informative. I think that that's an important piece. I think, and it sounds like you've done a number of things to really address this, but this idea of when a student is struggling, it sounds like you've got some things in place to deal with that, which is awesome. But do we have a system kind of where a family might just kind of say, wow, I need something, I need the help. Do we have, I mean, I think that's the thing. This is not where any of us want to be, but that idea of making sure that we have the systems in place to catch students that are falling. Again, it sounds like we've got some of those things in place, but just trying to figure out where students and families are when it comes to this work.
So I think your question, I'm going to try and paraphrase that, for the principals would be just how is it that we are ensuring that the students who need the support are getting the support, and can parents reach out? What are the avenues for parents to be able to reach out and communicate their need for support?
Perfect.
I can start. We'll continue with our team meetings. And so, we are divided into teams. And so we are taking the 286 grade students and put them into 2 teams of 140. And our teachers will continue to meet every week, even during distance learning. And we'll be able to talk about kids with our counselors, the special education department administrators. And we'll take that information. And then our counselors have been calling home all year and will continue to call home, talk to parents when there's been issues that the rest of the team of teachers have seen, especially as those names start coming up week by week. And then we'll be, as everybody else, be bringing kids in to be able to work with them in person as well and inviting them in. And then that'll be a great time for our counselors to talk with parents to see how they're doing with the family and parent and make that communication. We also have quite a few people who will do some outreach in our district, and they already are working with some of those families who need the most support. And so they are part of our meetings as well at the counselor administrative level.
And at OH, it's very similar. We have, as grade level homeroom teachers, there's always conversation at grade level teams of kids that maybe are not engaged, not completing work. They have constant conversation with families too, to know that as well. And so we have discussions there on how we can support them. We also have the solutions process that we do while we're in school to look at supports. And also, like Mike had spoken about, is kind of our tiering that we have supports that happen with our SEL specialist and our counselor as well. So that ongoing communication helps us kind of catch kids that are struggling, and families are really good at reaching out to kiddos. So even some students that are in distance learning right now, they're coming face to face to work with either Mrs. McCabe or Dr. H to kind of get the supports they need right now.
So I want to build on that question. Students are only part of the equation in schools. The bigger, most important piece oftentimes is our teachers, because our teachers are what make learning happen in our classrooms. And so I'm curious about how we are supporting our teachers and our paraprofessionals and all our other staff who are working so closely with our learners, and what resources we have to offer them during this time.
Does anyone want to talk about debriefing, because you've seen it more? Before Mike goes and talks about debriefing, I will say we are starting a saliva testing program within our building in a partnership with HCMC, and we're starting that on Wednesday so that all our staff can have that testing every week. So that is one way that we're trying to support students or support our staff within the building. But I think the debriefing is, I don't know if one of our principals can talk to that, speak to that.
Yeah, so
oh, Mike, we lost your sound, Mike. It's not working. Your sound's not working, Mike.
I can jump in about debriefing, and then when it works, you can let me know. But debriefing is an opportunity for teachers if they need someone to talk to, if they're needing some support, whether it's with work or personally. We have someone that comes in our buildings and listens to teachers and helps supports them kind of individually like that. So that's one option. And Tony, maybe you want to say a little more too.
Mm-hmm. Tony Pierce just arrived on the scene. Who can talk a little bit more about that?
Sorry, I had cut out there. So when I was joining, I missed part of that conversation.
Oh, it's simply that, so Lucy's question was about how are we supporting staff? Are there some things in place that can support our staff as well?
So I cut off right before someone was going to talk about debriefing. Did we talk about that?
So we're letting you do that.
Oh. Okay, so I am glad that we're asking about how we're supporting our staff. I think that that's a great question, and I talked about that at our last board meeting. One of the opportunities that we had was to have debriefing, and that was a chance for staff to talk confidentially to a professional. It's not therapy. It's just a way to have consulting, problem solving, and really address issues in life that are infiltrating into the workplace, and to help work through that. I will say that The engagement hasn't been at the level that we had hoped. So when we're looking at staff, just like we do with students, is that we're not going to end there. So if that isn't the solution that maybe we were looking for, and numbers are improving, and we are hoping that usage increases, but we're continuing to listen to our staff based on their survey results and to see where they're at, to see how we can best help them. So that's one thing we've tried, and it won't be the last thing we've tried.
Thank you. Any other questions? Stacy.
What will be the status of activities and sports under the new plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my recommendation is that we hold tight. So I heard today there was a press conference and they talked about activities with the governor, and I think there's going to be a recommendation. I know that our conference has been working really hard to be consistent so that because it doesn't do us any good for one district to have a different plan than another and not all be in it together and figure out what are the ways that we can continue to mitigate the spread and what are the strategies we can use, because we want to do it across the board. So our activities director, oh, here comes Aaron Forsyth. So they've been doing a great job of working together. And so I'll stop talking. How great, everyone's here. So Aaron, you're up. Why don't you take it from here? I'll start calling you in.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we have been meeting, the State High School League is meeting with us weekly on Thursdays. Wednesdays, we meet as a Metro East conference. And then on Fridays, we're meeting as a region. So there's 3 different levels or layers there. Right now, as a conference, the plan is to continue forward. So we have volleyball and football in action right now. And winter sports start. Our first batch of practices start a week from today for winter sports. The news coming out of the press conference is just that. It's news to me. The State High School League did not brief us on anything.
Yep.
And judging from Barb's nonverbals, I don't know if
I didn't.
the superintendent's got anything either. So
No, we didn't. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Julie, go ahead.
So Aaron, what percentage of our quarantines have been related to sports? Do you have any idea?
I
It's
don't
pretty big.
know. Yeah. So I don't know what our overall percent or number of high school students being quarantined. I know that we have close to 30 student athletes quarantined right now. I can say with confidence that we don't have any cases of student athletes COVID positive that they've caught it or we've traced it back to another student athlete. Those cases are coming from the home. So coming from family members, the cases that we've had amongst student athletes.
Okay. Or outside sports activities?
We have had some of those, but those are not, I should clarify, I just need to be and make sure that this is clear that those are not State High School League run athletics.
Right.
And there is a concern of that again, we have the structure and support to offer these programs as safe as possible. And we do see the risk elevated through, groups that aren't sponsored by the State High School League. Did I freeze there?
You did, but you're back.
A little.
Okay. It's just the risk is elevated when it's not run by the State High School League. They just don't have the layers of support that we do.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any last questions before someone makes a motion? Stacy.
My final point. So I just want to express thank you for all the work you're doing, Barb, and really all the information that's coming together. And I do appreciate how the guidance has been fine-tuned over time, which has made it challenging as well. I do just want to emphasize that this will be a big change for our elementary. I think the fact that we don't have any cases happening from student to student right now is, it seems like we wish we could keep going, but I also understand that the point about it being right after Thanksgiving and why you've chosen that date. And I just would like to say, I appreciate everything that's being done to support the families and the teachers, and just really want to emphasize though that tonight this will be probably really, hard for parents to hear who have young kids. And so if there's, as we've been doing, I think if there's more we can be doing for parents to support them, because they will be full-time with young ones. It's a lot different for those of us whose kids are a little older. It's just easier to manage. And so just wanted to point that out. And I know that we'll do everything we can, but I just wanted to highlight it. So that's all for me. Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, the people that you see in front of you, most of them have very small kids at home too. And so it's not getting away from them, the challenges as well they had. So please know that.
So can I just have you clarify one thing that was just said? So we can't say with full confidence that there is no student to student transmission in our buildings.
Well, I think that it would be the indicator. So here's the thing is that the indicator of that, number of students and staff that are within the building indicates their likely spread. We know we've had staff to staff spread. We do know that that's the case. So we know we've had transmission in our building. And so beyond that, we don't know beyond that part at this point. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Barb has a recommendation she's brought forward to the full board. I'm looking for a motion in regards to her recommendation.
So moved.
So to clarify, Julie, you're moving that we approve the recommendation to move the elementaries and the middle school to distance learning.
Yes, at the recommended dates.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Moved by Julie, seconded by Judy. Any other discussion? Okay, Julie, roll call vote.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Julie McGraw, aye. Judy Schwartz,
Aye.
Stacy Stout,
Aye.
Lucy Payne.
Aye. Motion carries. That is the only item on the agenda tonight. I do, like Stacy, I think on behalf of the board, would like to thank everyone working so hard on this. These are not easy decisions. It's very difficult to pull the information together, make sense of it, and then present and share it to us on a very short timeline. I know Barb and her team have been extremely busy today, as she talked about going from regional support team to incident command team, working with leadership leadership team. And so it's been a very busy day. And thank you for putting all that together so quickly for us, so we could move in a way to give our parents as much notice as possible based on the recommendation from the regional support team. So with that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy, seconded by Kevin. Roll call vote, please.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Julie McGraw, aye. Judy Schwartz,
Aye.
Stacy Stout,
Aye.
Lucy Payne.
Aye. Thank you all. We're adjourned.